Erich Maria Remarque Top 106 Quotes. Strange how complicated we can make things just to avoid showing what we feel. Heaven has no favorites. Anything you can settle with money is cheap. A hospital alone shows what war is. I want to think, and at the same time that's the last thing in the world I want to do. We have our dreams because without them we could not bear the truth. It's only terrible to have nothing to wait for. Life did not intend to make us perfect. Whoever is perfect belongs in a museum. Modesty and conscientiousness receive their reward only in novels. In life they are exploited and then shoved aside. To forget is the secret of eternal youth. One grows old only through memory. There's much too little forgetting. This book is to be neither an accusation nor a confession, and least of all an adventure, for death is not an adventure to those who stand face to face with it. It will try simply to tell of a generation of men who, even though they may have escaped shells, were destroyed by the war. Never do anything complicated when something simple will serve as well. It's one of the most important secrets of living. With blinded eyes I stare at the sky, this gray, endless sky of a crazy God, who had made life and death for his amusement. The war has ruined us for everything. Life is a disease, brother, and death begins already at birth. Every breath, every heartbeat, is a moment of dying, a little shove toward the end. No one could become stranger than the person you once loved. All quiet on the Western Front. You may turn into an archangel, a fool, or a criminal, no one will see it. But when a button is missing, everyone sees that. Come let me kiss you. Life was never so precious as today, when it meant so little. Good or ill, life is life. You only realize that when you have to risk it. We were all at once terribly alone, and alone we must see it through. No soldier outlives 1,000 chances. But every soldier believes in chance and trusts his luck. Our knowledge of life is limited to death. Mirrors are there when we are, and yet they never give anything back to us but our own image. Never, never shall we know what they are when they are alone or what is behind them. Bombardment, barrage, curtain fire, mines, gas, tanks, machine guns, hand grenades, words, but they hold the horror of the world. We are not youth any longer. We don't want to take the world by storm. We are fleeing. We fly from ourselves. From our life. We were 18 and had begun to love life and the world, and we had to shoot it to pieces. Courage is the fairest adornment of youth. It is very queer that the unhappiness of the world is so often brought on by small men. To me the front is a mysterious whirlpool. Though I am in still water far away from its center, I feel the whirl of the vortex sucking me slowly, irresistibly, inescapably into itself. Our thoughts are clay. They are molded with the changes of the days. When we are resting they are good, under fire, they are dead. fields of craters within and without. We are forlorn like children, and experienced like old men. We are crude and sorrowful and superficial. I believe we are lost. Suddenly I become filled with a consuming impatience to be gone. It was a melancholy secret that reality can arouse desires but never satisfy them. Sometimes I used to think that one day I should wake up, and all that had been would be over. Forgotten, sunk, drowned. Nothing was sure, not even memory. But now, for the first time, I see you are a man like me. I thought of your hand grenades, of your bayonet, of your rifle. Now I see your wife in your face and our fellowship. Forgive me, comrade. We always see it too late. Why do they never tell us that you are poor devils like us, that your mothers are just as anxious as ours, and that we have the same fear of death, and the same dying and the same agony? Forgive me, comrade. How could you be my enemy? One is never too young. Only always too old. But probably that's the way of the world. When we have finally learned something, we're too old to apply it, and so it goes, wave after wave, generation after generation. No one learns anything at all from anyone else. It is a strange thing that all the memories have these two qualities. They are always full of quietness. That is the most striking thing about them, and even when things weren't like that in reality, they still seem to have that quality. They are soundless apparitions, which speak to me by looks and gestures, wordless and silent, and their silence is precisely what disturbs me. The best way to lose a woman was to show her a kind of life that one could offer her for only a few days. We have lost all feeling for one another. We can hardly control ourselves when our glance lights on the form of some other man. We are insensible, dead men, who through some trick, some dreadful magic, are still able to run and to kill. I am young, I am 20 years old, yet I know nothing of life but despair, death, fear, and fatuous superficiality cast over an abyss of sorrow. I see how peoples are set against one another, and in silence, unknowingly, foolishly, obediently, innocently slay one another. Everyone saves someone at least once. Just as he kills someone at least once. Even though he may not know it. At school nobody ever taught us how to light a cigarette in a storm of rain, nor how a fire could be made with wet wood, nor that it is best to stick a bayonet in the belly because there it doesn't get jammed, as it does in the ribs. Someone said to me once that a cigarette at the right moment is better than all the ideals in the world. What comfort there is in the skin of someone you love. We were 18 and had begun to love life and the world, and we had to shoot it to pieces. A word of command has made these silent figures our enemies. A word of command might transform them into our friends. At some table a document is signed by some persons whom none of us knows, and then for years together that very crime on which formerly the world's condemnation and severest penalty fall, becomes our highest aim. Trenches, hospitals, the common grave, there are no other possibilities. Nothing is the mirror in which you see the world. No soldier outlives 1,000 chances. For us lads of 18, they ought to have been mediators and guides to the world of maturity, the world of work, of duty, of culture, of progress, to the future. The wisest were just the poor and simple people. They knew the war to be a misfortune, whereas those who were better off, and should have been able to see more clearly what the consequences would be, were beside themselves with joy. For a moment I had a strange intuition that just this, and in a real, profound sense, is life, and perhaps happiness even, love with a mixture of sadness, reverence, and silent knowledge. I wandered through the streets thinking of all the things I might have said and might have done had I been other than I was. I felt the first soft glow of intoxication that makes the blood warmer and spreads an illusion of adventure over uncertainty. The things men did or felt they had to do. Am I jealous? He thought, astonished. Jealous of the chance object to which she has attached herself. Jealous of something that does not concern me? One can be jealous of a love that has turned away, but not of that to which it has turned. The soldier is on friendlier terms than other men with his stomach and intestines. 3/4 of his vocabulary is derived from these regions, and they give an intimate flavor to expressions of his greatest joy as well as of his deepest indignation. It is impossible to express oneself in any other way so clearly and pithily. Sweet words. Gentle deceptive balm. Help, love, to belong together, to come back again. Words, sweet words. Nothing but words. How many words existed for this simple, wild, cruel attraction of two bodies? What a rainbow of imagination, lies, sentiment, and self-deception enclosed it. Someday perhaps our time will be known as the age of irony. Not the witty irony of the 18th century, but the stupid or malignant irony of a crude age of technological progress and cultural regression. Sweet dreams though the guns are booming. We are little flames poorly sheltered by frail walls against the storm of dissolution and madness, in which we flicker and sometimes almost go out. Then the muffled roar of the battle becomes a ring that encircles us. We creep in upon ourselves, and with big eyes stare into the night. Our only comfort is the steady breathing of our comrades asleep, and thus we wait for the morning. Love should not be polluted with friendship. You take it from me, we are losing the war because we can salute too well. Do I walk? Have I feet still? I raise my eyes, I let them move round, and turn myself with them, one circle, and I stand in the midst. All is as usual. Only the militiaman Stanislaus Kaczynski has died. Then I know nothing more. Yes, that's the way they think, these 100,000 Canareks. Iron youth. Youth. We are none of us more than 20 years old. But young? That is long ago. We are old folk. Kaczynski says it is all to do with education, it softens the brain. We march up, moody or good-tempered soldiers, We reach the zone where the front begins and become on the instant human animals. We loved our country as much as they. We went courageously into every action, but also we distinguished the false from true. We had suddenly learned to see. And we saw that there was nothing of their world left. We were all at once terribly alone, and alone we must see it through. We want to live at any price, so we cannot burden ourselves with feelings which, though they might be ornamental enough in peacetime, would be out of place here. We had fancied our task would be different, only to find we were to be trained for heroism as though we were circus ponies. But we soon accustomed ourselves to it. We learned in fact that some of these things were necessary, but the rest merely show. Soldiers have a fine nose for such distinctions. My feet begin to move forward in my boots, I go quicker, I run. Soldiers pass by me, I hear their voices without understanding. The earth is streaming with forces which pour into me through the soles of my feet. The night crackles electrically, the front thunders like a concert of drums. My limbs move supplely, I feel my joints strong, I breathe the air deeply. The night lives, I live. I feel a hunger, greater than comes from the belly alone. The devil take all conventions, they were made for other times. Through the years our business has been killing, it was our first calling in life. Our knowledge of life is limited to death. He looked at me sideways. You mean, and then mix things up a bit? Never apologize. Never talk. Send flowers. No letter. Only flowers. They cover up everything. Even graves. Night again. We are deadened by the strain, a deadly tension that scrapes along one's spine like a gapped knife. Our legs refuse to move, our hands tremble, our bodies are a thin skin stretched painfully over repressed madness, over an almost irresistible, bursting roar. We have neither flesh nor muscles any longer, we dare not look at one another for fear of some miscalculable thing. So we shut our teeth, it will end, perhaps we will come through. We are little flames poorly sheltered by frail walls against the storm of dissolution and madness, in which we flicker and sometimes almost go out. Our knowledge of life is limited to death. What will happen afterwards? And what can possibly become of us? His misfortune was that he saw a cherry tree in a garden. I wanted to say something, but I could not. It is difficult to find words when one really has something to say. And even if one knows the right words, then one is ashamed to say them. All these words belong to other, earlier centuries. Our time has not the words yet to express its feelings. We can only be offhand, anything else rings false. Here I sit and there you are lying, we have so much to say. And we shall never say it. We were 18 and had begun to love life and the world, and we had to shoot it to pieces. The first bomb, the first explosion, burst in our hearts. I am often on guard over the Russians. In the darkness one sees their forms move like stick storks, like great birds. They come close up to the wire fence and lean their faces against it. Their fingers hook round the mesh. If we were not automata at that moment, we would continue lying there, exhausted, and without will. But we are swept forward again, powerless, madly savage and raging. We will kill, for they are still our mortal enemies. Their rifles and bombs are aimed against us, and if we don't destroy them, they will destroy us. They are more to me than life, these voices. They are more than motherliness and more than fear. They are the strongest, most comforting thing there is anywhere. They are the voices of my comrades. Iron youth. Youth. We are none of us more than 20 years old. But young? Youth? That is long ago. We are old folk. I soon found out this much. Terror can be endured so long as a man simply ducks, but it kills, if a man thinks about it. The idea of authority, which they represented, was associated in our minds with a greater insight and a more humane wisdom. The trucks roll monotonously onwards, the shouts are monotonous, the falling rain is monotonous. It falls on our heads and on the heads of the dead men up at the front of the truck, on the body of the little recruit with a wound that is far too big for his hip. It's falling on Kemmerich's grave, and it's falling in our hearts. A man dreams of a miracle and wakes up to loaves of bread. We get back pretty well. There is no further attack by the enemy. We lie for an hour panting and resting before anyone speaks. We are so completely played out that in spite of our great hunger we do not think of the provisions. Then gradually we become something like men again. Beside us lies a fair-headed recruit in utter terror. He has buried his face in his hands, his helmet has fallen off. I fish hold of it and try to put it back on his head. He looks up, pushes the helmet off and like a child creeps under my arm, his head close to my breast. The little shoulders heave. Shoulders just like Kemmerich's. I let him be. No one would believe that in this howling waste there could still be men, but steel helmets now appear on all sides out of the trench. And 50 yards from us a machine gun is already in position and barking. The wire entanglements are torn to pieces. Yet they offer some obstacle. We see the storm troops coming. Our artillery opens fire. Machine guns rattle, rifles crack. Let the months and years come. They can take nothing from me, they can take nothing more. I am so alone, and so without hope that I can confront them without fear. We're no longer young men. We've lost any desire to conquer the world. We are refugees. We are fleeing from ourselves. From our lives. We were 18 years old, and we had just begun to love the world and to love being in it, but we had to shoot at it. The first shell to land went straight for our hearts. We've been cut off from real action, from getting on, from progress. We don't believe in those things anymore, we believe in the war. We didn't want the war, the others say the same thing, and yet half the world isn't at all the same. But there are more lies told by the other side than by us, say I. Just think of those pamphlets the prisoners have on them, where it says that we eat Belgian children. The fellows who write those lies ought to go out and hang themselves. They are real culprits. Avevamo disiatani, e cominciavamo ad amare il mondo, l'esistenza, si hanno costretti aspero contro. In himself man is essentially a beast, only he butters it over like a slice of bread with a little decorum. That is the remarkable thing about drinking, it brings people together so quickly, but between night and morning it sets an interval again of years. We don't act like that because we are in good humor, we are in a good humor because otherwise